episode 99 of the Hipsters United podcast.
My name is Chris, and joining me this week are Jason.
Hello.
Susan.
Hi.
And special guest Steven.
Greetings. That's not funny.
The reason these three particular folks are on the podcast tonight is that they all saw the Smashing Pumpkins' first live performance of 2013 at an event hosted by extreme energy beverage purveyor Red Bull called Sound Select, part of the South by Southwest event in Austin, Texas. While not featuring the full playthrough of Oceania from late 2012, the set was nevertheless familiar to those who saw the band last year, with the exception perhaps of United States, which Billy played for the first time with this incarnation of the band. Some of the podcast listeners may remember that Billy Corgan made it to South by Southwest last year, where he did a number of interviews with increasingly grating internet personalities. He participated in a panel about the music industry and attended a screening of a documentary that he appeared in. This year, however, Billy managed to somehow avoid Shira Lazar and all of her questions about whether Billy is blowing up Twitter, and he did more singing than talking. So at this point, I guess I'll turn it over to my guests to talk about the show. But the first question I have is about how you got into the show. As I believe Jason discussed last year, South by Southwest isn't your traditional music festival. So how did one get into the Red Bull Sound Select? Did you have to wait in line all day? Were there tickets? Were there bracelets? Were there special press badges?
I streaked. That's not true.
Who's taking this? Chris, you got to address questions to specific people.
We'll start with Jason, since you're the most senior member of our panel.
All right. Yes. Yeah, you just had to line up, really. I mean, they ask you to RSVP. Lots of things at South by Southwest do this, but it's not really because they're going to check your name on the list. It's so they have an estimate of how many people are coming, plus it helps deter some people from showing up because they think they had to RSVP to get in. So it helps with crowd control to ask people to RSVP. But you really don't have to do that. You just get in line. This was a free show. A very, very large percentage of what happens at South by Southwest is free. This was no different. We got in line about 4:30?
More like 4:15, I think.
Oh, well, I was off by 15 minutes.
And doors were at 8 or so, is that right?
Doors were at 8. Pumpkins went on at midnight, so it was a long wait. There were 3 opening bands, thankfully. They were all good. And so we had the weather was unbelievable. What was so amazing was that it was completely comfortable to be outside the entire time. It wasn't like really hot at 4 and cold at midnight. It was like pretty much 70 the entire time. It was blissful from a weather standpoint. So
I think they I read some different things online. I think they let 350 people in. And then at some point they came through and wristbanded us. And then they basically told everybody who didn't have a wristband to go away, which was interesting because a lot of South by Southwest shows at some point will go to 1 in, 1 out. So when the venue reaches capacity, they'll allow, if one person leaves, they'll allow someone else to come in. But we were basically told no exit and re-enter. And, everybody who didn't get in, just go bye-bye. You're not getting in. So I think everybody who got in felt fairly lucky they got in. So
that sounds slightly awful, but there was apparently an open bar, though we missed out on this. So
yeah, that was very disappointing. I kept seeing people who just get all these beers and I guess Red Bull vodkas, and I was just standing there.
I'm sure there was Red Bull on tap there.
Yeah, and so apparently it was free.
They were doing it through IV, I heard.
You just go back and strap in and get some extreme, get some wings.
Yeah, the dudes immediately to my right at the concert certainly had wings, but more to come on that. So.
Jason, did I not tell you this podcast is actually sponsored by Red Bull? I'm going to try and mention them as much as I can. Do a little bit of product placement here.
Chris, this is against every ethical principle I ever laid down for Hipsters United.
Well, Steven, you have not been on the podcast before, and I don't want to, ask you, so how big a fan are you or anything like that, but what's your background coming in? Have you seen the band recently? Had you seen the band last year in 2012 for the Oceania tour?
I actually feel like I could crush most people. In fact, I'm willing to crush you right now. No, that's not true. No, actually, the latter is not true, but the former is true. So, that means most of it's all true then. But the point is, sorry, spoken to the mic. Anyway, I have not seen the Pumpkins Well, and I tried to explain this to Jason the day of. I kind of feel like I did technically take part in the Future Embrace tour, which we caught them at Lansdowne when I was living in Boston. And so again, a them there is obviously not a them; it was more a he. But I mean, this is sort of a long-winded thing that I'm tempted to go into, which is that I look at all of it. I still kind of count the Zwan days too as the Pumpkins, but maybe that's a foul. An HU Hipsters United podcast.
No, I think that's
we're very Zwan friendly here.
Going the other way would be a foul, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, all right then. Well,
don't write Swan out of history, man.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why sometimes I wonder about that is, of course, because I feel like those songs are just. I mean, I know it was a nasty ending to all of that stuff. So, but I mean, I'm actually kind of sad that a lot of that stuff never seems to get played anymore. Unless, correct me if I'm wrong.
Where have you been, Steven, all this time?
He plays some solo acoustic from time to time, but never with the Pumpkins.
Because I still actually thought that was some of the more inspired stuff that I've seen live in a long time. But again, according to Billy Corgan, that was all like a farce, and he was miserable, and everybody was shooting heroin. So maybe I'm just wrong about all.
That's the truth, then.
Yeah. But so the last time that I saw them. Truly properly was in I guess 2002 at the Austin Music Hall for the what I'm sorry again, I may offend, but I don't know. I sometimes I go back and forth. I mean, I guess it just depends on my mood, how many beers I've had, or what. I don't know how tired I am. I listened to the concert that I attended, and a lot of times I think it was kind of a cruddy show, but it was the Machina tour. That was the last time I saw them. I saw them before that in '95 at the Frank Irwin Center, and then in '93 in my backyard, basically at South Park Meadows.
So the point is, though, you have not seen the Pumpkins since not only in the current incarnation of the band, you haven't seen them since they reformed.
So going back, maybe I should not have mentioned years. I'll just go with the Siamese Dream tour. I saw them in the Melancholy tour. I saw them in the Machina tour, and then I had a Future Embrace run-in, and then I had this South by Southwest show kind of fall in my lap.
Well, I guess that's a good time to transition into this show then. I don't know, Susan, you want to talk a little bit about the show last night? So, refresh my memory. You guys did not see them when they did the full Giant Ore Oceania tour, right?
No. Mm-mm.
But you did see them. When was the last time you did see them?
I saw them in 2011 in Philadelphia.
Okay, so it's been a little while.
I saw them a couple times in 2010. Yeah, so it's been a little while for me. So I would say the show was a really cool vibe. So we're talking about the free drinks, right, that were flowing. So I'll pick up there. So I mean, it was a cool vibe. I feel like everybody that was there was really committed to like going to this show, so it was kind of interesting vibe compared to a lot of other Pumpkin shows I've been to recently in the last couple years. And there were it's a small show, but everybody seemed really, really, just really excited. The opening bands were pretty good, and one of the remarks that we had as we were standing around was that the opening bands were maybe a little bit higher caliber than we were used to see opening for the Pumpkins. So that was pretty interesting. I heard a couple new bands that were pretty interesting through that. So they was first Ringo Death Star, which is an Austin band that I had never seen, but toured with the Pumpkins in 2011 in Europe.
Yeah, I was going to say, their name sounds familiar, so it must be some Pumpkins-related something.
Yeah, I had never actually seen them. And so they're kind of shoegazy, I guess you could say. And then they had a San Antonio band called Girl in a Coma, who was, Jason thought, sort of Toadies-esque, sort of a cool rocker vibe. And then this sort of metal band called Sword, or The Sword, which really wasn't my thing. I think Jason enjoyed that quite a bit more than I did, probably. It's a little bit, I don't know, reminded me of college or something in a negative way, but...
I wonder if they ever went through the same thing that the Pumpkins went through, where for a while they were just Sword, and then they became The Sword.
Hey, you're off the podcast. This is the one topic that is banned
But I'm not bringing it up as a topic. I'm just merely, it's a footnote, that's all.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, that kind of surprises me, Susan, when you say that, you know, everyone was really, like, there and excited to see the Pumpkins, because that wouldn't be at all what I would picture. I mean, I've never been to South by Southwest. I've never been to Austin. I've only been to Texas twice in my life, I believe. But when I think South by Southwest, I think people trying to launch social media applications and, you know, hipsters, for lack of a better word, kind of wandering around. Hey, what show's going on now? Sure, I'll go see Green Day. What the hell? The Pumpkins are playing. I kind of remember them. I'll go see them. But it sounds like it's the opposite, that it was, you know, people were all really into being there, which I guess makes sense if they have to wait in line for 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been to shows where that was not the case. So, like, just here's a counterexample. Last year, we went to see Fiona Apple at her big sort of comeback show at Stubbs, and which is a much bigger venue than the venue where the Pumpkins were. I mean, the Pumpkins were playing essentially a teeny tiny parking lot, right? Whereas Stubbs is an actual like music venue. So we went and saw Fiona Apple. We waited kind of a comparably long time, maybe slightly less of a wait. But anyway, so that show was an official show. So they let in all the people with badges and wristbands before any people that were paying cash in the door, like we were paying cash at the door. And we got into the show, and all the people with wristbands and badges were standing around texting. And I was like, oh, my God, it's Fiona Apple. She hasn't done a show in 4 years. She's going to be playing new music. Oh, my God, oh, my God. And I'm looking around like, what is these people's problem? They're just sitting here texting. So I think there is an element of that, but this wasn't like that because it was such a tiny show. It wasn't official, and it was people who were waiting online. I mean, as we were waiting, and this line stretched around a city block and more, there would be people walking by that were like, what are y'all waiting for? And we'd be like, Smashing Pumpkins, and they're like, huh.
There was one guy who literally, after we said Smashing Pumpkins, or somebody said Smashing Pumpkins, were probably flying to him out of the line, and he goes, oh, I called it!
See, now that's what I picture. That's the South by Southwest that's occurring in my head right now.
Well, that's right, but Saturday night, that's the last night of South by, at midnight, there's lots going on all over town. I mean, you're talking literally, there's probably 50
You have Justin Timberlake and Prince at the same time as this show. I mean,
yeah,
you know, huge artists.
And more than that. So it really gets down to niches or niches. How do you say that word? So, yeah, the people who chose the Smashing Pumpkins to line up for, out of everything they could have lined up for at that moment, you know, they were fans, right? I mean,
I was actually still really shocked that pretty much I mean, again, I don't think there was anybody in there, honestly, that wasn't singing along to pretty much every song. And what really blew me away was when people were singing along to Oceania songs. I couldn't believe it. Because I kept thinking, when I think of South by Southwest, I definitely don't think of diehards showing up for established bands. I mean, that just kind of just goes against everything that I think of when I think of South by Southwest, because I think it's all about falling, you know, into just organically kind of going with the flow and finding out about so-and-so is going to be here, or, oh, you should check out blah, blah, blah. Oh, they're doing another show here, and then kind of discovering new bands. So that was why it was really, I kind of felt like the whole thing had this strange irony to it, because you know, I spent the whole festival kind of really enjoying discovering new bands, fleshing out bands that I was familiar with but didn't know very well. And so it was strange to me that then it was all kind of bookended with, or I guess, wait a minute, maybe bookended isn't the right expression here. Well, anyway, capped off. It was all sort of finished up with a band that, you know, I've been listening to my entire, what feels like my entire life, you know, the part that counts. So that was unusual to me. But again, I don't know. So it was, in that regard, I actually felt, again, it was unique in that way, because that's never happened. That's all I have to say about that.
There's been a lot of criticisms of South by Southwest for having more big names in recent years, but I mean, I'm newer to Austin myself, so I've only been doing South by Southwest for 3 years, 4 years. And, I mean, to me, it is, I mean, it's such a long event. It's 4 days and 4 nights. I mean, stuff is going on all day and all night for 4 days, all across town in many venues. And so to me, if like literally the very last time slot on Saturday, I mean, you have to understand, Saturday is the 4th day.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably already been a dozen time slots on Saturday. And so to me, if the very last one has like 6 huge names playing simultaneously across town, I mean, to me, that's kind of cool. In a weird way, it's kind of like a reward. It's like you tried out a lot of new bands, and like you probably made some cool discoveries. You probably also watched a lot of crap. It is kind of nice to have a sure thing at the end of the day.
Or is it, in a weird way, kind of actually fitting? Because, I mean, there's a part of me that felt like, when I was at the show, honestly, I kind of felt like I was a little bit sad that everybody there, not that I'm not totally enjoying the fact that we met, but I don't know if you had this feeling, but for me, it was actually a little sad that it was only diehards there. I kind of feel like the Smashing Pumpkins are in need of new fans, younger, a different audience, not the people who could literally sing along to every song. So there's a part of me that feels like, in a weird way, it almost does make sense that they were at South by Southwest. Oddly enough, even somebody like Prince and Justin Timberlake, who hasn't had an album in forever. I realize these are all famous people, but in a weird way, I feel like their musical relevance is questionable, in my opinion. So I kind of feel like it could have been an interesting way to. I mean, I kind of feel like for them to kind of reestablish themselves or kind of try to make themselves relevant to a new audience.
I actually completely agree with that. I mean, if I didn't make it clear in my last answer, I think the people who criticize South by Southwest over having some big artists are just totally out to lunch. And but partially because of what you're saying, because like these days, who is a huge artist? Who is so huge that their relevance isn't like constantly being questioned? You know, I don't know that there's anybody.
Justin Bieber.
Who?
Justin Bieber.
I think to practically everybody who goes to South by Southwest, the musical relevance of Justin Bieber would be completely a question mark. You know, so I mean, I totally embrace what you're saying.
I was talking to the kids behind us. I say kids, they're probably only 4 or 5 years younger than me. But that's, I mean, if you think about it, I was 14 when Melancholy came out, 4 or 5 years younger than me, young enough that you probably weren't necessarily a fan till the band was kind of winding down, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to these kids, and most of them had not seen the band before. Ever. And one of them specifically said, well, I'm here to see the Sword, but I think it's like fucking awesome. I'm going to get to see the Pumpkins too. I'm really excited. So, I mean, I think there actually were some people like that. Like, this guy was really more of a, like, he was there to see Sword, apparently. But, you know, he kind of obviously knew the Pumpkins and knew some of their catalog and was excited to see them. So I think that even those who weren't, like, necessarily obsessive fans were definitely people who had some idea of the catalog. Actually, this is a pretty funny story. I wasn't sure when I would introduce it, but there was a guy standing to my right who was, like, totally wasted. There was this group of guys just totally drunk, and throughout the show, he kept yelling over and over and over, and over, I don't look in the mirror, Billy! I don't look in the mirror! And I was like, what? Do you think you're ugly? Like,
yeah, you know, well, that was what was so funny. Honestly, and this actually, I feel like is a knock on myself because I feel like I'm better than that. But honestly, it wasn't until about a good 3 or 4 songs in of him repeating that I finally realized that he was requesting ugly.
I didn't realize it till today, so don't feel bad.
Wow. Awesome. Yes.
So he just kept over and over. And I was telling Jason about this today, and I was like, I don't know what that was about. And he was like, isn't there a song? And then we're like, yeah, ugly. So, like,
I had that moment where I was thinking, like, wow, it's not that this guy is really fucked up on some kind of awesome drug of some kind. It's actually that he's really a diehard fan that wants to hear what would probably be a really cool song. So that was weird for me, for sure.
No, this makes me realize we never did a obvious titles for The Aeroplane Flies High, because I Don't Look in the Mirror might have been the obvious title for Ugly. I don't know, I'd have to listen to the song.
It blows my mind that someone would request a song that I don't think they've ever played live. You know, super obscure by the
they've
first
definitely
line
played
of the song.
Right? Hasn't there been like an acoustic? I feel like I heard once an acoustic version of Ugly or like a stripped down. Am I?
I'll call up SPFC.
Please don't.
SPFC.
They might have played it at Double Door. Chris, the Pumpkins were so loud. Like, the Sword is basically like Black Sabbath, exactly. And, like, the Pumpkins came out and had to be more than twice as loud as this band. And, like, during the Sword, people were headbanging and totally rocking out to them. And then the Pumpkins come out and it's just like, bang! Like, deafening.
Significantly crisper in every regard.
So loud.
It made me feel a little bad for those opening bands. I kind of felt like they were poorly represented,
I mean, I think that phenomenon is reasonably common, at least in a lot of shows I've been to, but yeah, I've noticed the Pumpkins, it seems like over the years, have gotten louder and louder and louder.
They were loud.
And this is a band that was sued in, 1997 for hearing loss. Obviously, Billy is not taking that to heart.
Did not get the message.
I had a conversation, actually, earlier today with a friend of mine about the loudness and softness of the Pumpkins. And it was interesting because he was talking about how much the softer side of the Pumpkins was so unusual and uncommon and un-Pumpkins-like. And it was a long argument because I had to point out we ended up on Spotify, which is actually a poor way to make the case because there is just not enough of the good stuff as far as I'm concerned on Spotify. But we had to go to Spotify to actually show how, oddly enough, again, they're becoming a louder and louder band, which I think is kind of funny. That was another thing during the show that kind of bummed me out a little bit. Other than Pale Horse, there were really I felt like there just weren't enough moments where they kind of chilled the hell out.
Yeah, it was a rocking affair.
Definitely. I mean, I think, my first show ever seeing the Pumpkins was on the Machina tour, and we're doing acoustic sets, right?
Yes, those were so good.
And I miss that a little bit. Like, I wish that would be something that they would bring back, where they did a couple acoustic songs within the context of a Pumpkin show, and we just haven't seen that in a little while.
That used to be a
really.
staple. I mean, that used to be something they did all the time.
I think in the 20th anniversary tour, it fell pretty flat, and I think Billy might have taken, I don't know, I'm probably speculating, but I think maybe he took that the wrong way, as he as often does.
I do imagine, when you're up on stage and you go from, playing really loud and, it's just kind of people running around and jumping around, and then you play something, soft and acoustic. From his perspective, it probably, now he can hear people talking. It probably just naturally, to him, seems like, the energy of the show is gone. So, but it is too bad because that always has been one of the strengths of the Pumpkins is.
Well, and then the contrast, I feel like I love the idea when you're, sweating like crazy, jumping around, going crazy for a really, rockin' song. Those pauses, just like a good, symphony, or, where everybody slows down. And obviously that still happens within the course of a Smashing Pumpkins song. So it wasn't like we were completely deprived of, those moments. But I actually feel like that then makes, when you come back and you blow it out with, whatever, upbeat, loud Pumpkin song, you like hearing live, it just makes it that much sweeter.
Yeah. I mean, Oceania, the song, is pretty good at slowing it down,
It was, yeah.
Quieted down in parts. Even the middle of the United States, I mean, it has always had that quiet part in the middle.
Yes.
But it was like, instead of the kind of spooky quiet part that it used to be, it was actually kind of a sweet sounding middle part.
Was that the part where that was where the theremin made its I shouldn't say debut, but made its appearance, right?
Yeah, I think obscure instrument wires are being crossed. That's the mellotron. The theremin is the thing where you wave your hand and it goes. Woo.
Yeah, no, and that's what I thought. For whatever reason, I thought that there was the solo that was the kind of the
tradition. There a theremin?
I don't know.
They have used one before, but I thought
you didn't see when he busted out the theremin. Not Billy Corgan didn't play it.
I must have missed it. I saw Jeff playing the mellotron. I didn't see him playing the theremin. I must have spaced out. It's possible.
Yeah, no, actually he didn't.
All right.
Sure.
I totally spaced it. That's totally possible. I could have done that. Well, that's cool. He's done it before. They have done it before. So, okay. I'm just going to assume you saw it and I didn't. So I'm sorry.
I would love to ask. I know that's. I'll if it's not worth answering, ignore me. But I was curious actually what y'all's feelings were as far as the ratio of old to new stuff. Whether you liked that there were more of the staples played, or whether you were craving some of the newer stuff.
I'm definitely craving the newer stuff. I mean, part of this is, I was really disappointed last fall when they were playing Oceania straight through with the big visuals. I really wanted to see that tour, and it just didn't. I mean, I talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, but we looked at it a million different ways, and there just wasn't any way we could really make any of the dates, which was really unfortunate. So I really find myself enjoying the new songs the most. And I'm not a huge Zeitgeist fan, but I was actually really enjoying United States. I was really enjoying that being brought back into the mix. So I know. So I was really enjoying the new songs, and I was kind of hoping that we would hear a new song, like some of the stuff they've been demoing for the last couple months. And so
I was shocked actually that not even one. Well, I mean, they did do the David Bowie cover, which just was a break from. I was actually expecting a little bit more, some venturing out from the expected. So that was another little bit of a disappointment for me for sure.
Yeah, I was surprised by how similar the set list was to what they were doing last year. And the only real differences were United States and Porcelina, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you guys as a diehard fan who still cares. I mean, I want to hear the new music, but I really like being in a happy, energized crowd, and I think they hit the balance about as good as they've ever hit it, frankly.
Except that when it was mostly diehards, don't you all think that they probably, too, were in the same boat where they were like, let's hear some new shit?
I mean...
It's hard to know. I mean...
I think there were plenty of people who weren't diehards. I mean, I think relatively speaking... Okay, let me give a little spiel on this, because Pumpkins fans are all older now, right? It is not socially acceptable if you're over the age of 30 to stand outside a rock show and wait for 4 hours to get in. You cannot go on your Facebook and say, in line for Smashing Pumpkins at 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday. People will be like, what the hell is wrong with you? You have a kid. But...
My mom.
I better hide that from my timeline.
I know.
But no, you don't have to, because South by Southwest is different, because South by Southwest is all about lines. It actually is completely socially acceptable for anyone at South by Southwest to be in line. So I think this show was sort of unique in, I mean, Susan talked about how long it had been since she'd been in a crowd that was that excited to see the Pumpkins. It's been a long time since I was in a crowd that was that excited to see the Pumpkins. And that on the first reason for that is because we're Americans, and people in this country don't get excited for any concerts. If we were in Europe or Australia, people get excited.
Or South America.
Or Mexico, wherever.
Maybe not even Europe so much, but...
Okay, but point is, U.S. crowds don't get excited. But in the old days, when it was people who had waited in line all day to see them, that was an element that made, you had more excited people. And the fact that it was socially acceptable to wait in line for the show led, again, to some of that dynamic creeping in. So I thought that was really cool. It's probably fairly unique. Who knows? It may never even happen again. Or Billy may just start playing South by Southwest every year. I don't know.
So then I definitely shouldn't tell people that I was doing lines at South by Southwest.
Billy, speaking of wanting to play South by Southwest every year, I don't know if I've ever seen him so, graciously happy at a show. When everyone wished him happy birthday, I thought sure he was going to, have some kind of snarky remark or anything. But actually, he, almost melted, frankly.
He looked like he was, going to cry, a happy cry. Really.
It was kind of cool.
That was the first time that I felt like he actually looked, and again, call me a negative Nancy, I don't know. For me, that was the first time that he actually looked like he was happy to be there. My wife at one point whispered in my ear, she said, oh, he seems melancholy. And I was like, well, that normally should be a good thing. That would sound about right. But it almost did seem like it seemed sort of perfunctory to me at times during the show. And, that moment seemed like it made me feel good because I kept thinking it just started to feel like his heart was in it. Obviously, there were a couple moments there with XYU where I felt like he was actually like really kind of channeling, that spirit, the older spirit of those songs. But I don't know. That to me definitely was a moment where I actually felt like stood out, because at times I felt as if it didn't seem like he was actually enjoying playing some of those like hits, and I guess in the back of my mind maybe it's projection, because I know I feel like I've read things in the past with respect to his comments towards Pavement, that he seems to really, I don't know, it seems like he's not all that into playing old stuff and just kind of going to the well over and over again.
I don't know. Lately, I think he's kind of made peace with it. For a while, he definitely was. I mean, there never was a point where they weren't playing the hits, despite what you may read in certain reviews.
Oh,
but
yeah. Oh no, I know that.
He definitely used to have more of an antagonistic approach to his older material, I think, just kind of playing it because he felt like he had to. I think he still does feel like he has to, but I don't know.
I mean, how many times?
It seems like lately he's made more peace with it.
I mean, so I have so many memories. In fact, I feel like twice it happened at the concerts that I attended that he actually bitched at us for not playing what we wanted. And I mean, I feel like there were a lot of times where I would listen to shows where he would always say that, well, what do you want to hear? Because we're obviously not playing what you want, And I feel like
Totally.
I feel like that struck me as kind of, it was a weird contrast, because again, I'm kind of coming from my association with the Pumpkins will always probably fall back on those older days than the newer, even though I've never dropped off, and out of the picture with them. But that's always kind of my bedrock. And for me, there was a part of me that thought, I was surprised. It comes back to what I've already said, so I shouldn't be too redundant, but I was surprised at how many old songs he played. And there was a part of me that felt like, ooh, does he really want to do this? But yeah, the birthday song moment was awesome, because there was finally a moment where I felt like we were all kind of connecting.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. And in the days leading up to this show, I'd kind of been anticipating that we might see a combative Billy or a competitive Billy. I mean, I thought South by Southwest would kind of bring that out of him. Just like there's all this buzz, new bands, whatever, and I anticipated him coming out and wanting to be like, we're here, we're rocking, we're kicking ass, we're better than these bands, and have an edge. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's how he was last year when he was being interviewed at South by Southwest.
No, and it was nothing like that. It was no edge. It was just like, Grace, happy to be here with you, playing a show that I thought, again, I thought the balance was good. I could enjoy. They played 4 songs off Oceania. They played United States. They played Starla. They made me happy. People like me happy, I think. And they also made other people happy. They played Zero. They played Bullet with Butterfly Wings, So
they didn't play.
They played Tonight. They played Disarm.
I don't look in the mirror, though.
They didn't.
At least one guy went home a little bit sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I just thought that was really neat. And it just goes to show Billy's unpredictable. And then, not only was I anticipating it the days before that I thought he was going to be maybe combative, then, in the lead up to the set, and they may not have even been there, they were probably out having barbecue, like smart people, but, between the sets of the other bands, the Red Bull people were playing, 90s radio hits, and the worst 90s radio hits, like Sister Hazel and Tonic
Machine Head
and Semisonic.
Bush's Machine Head.
No, we didn't get any Bush.
I can't believe
actually,
I went.
No, it was all horrible one-hit wonders. Not horrible. It was all one-hit wonders like Tracy Bonham and stuff like that. You've completely forgotten the artist. And then it was Guns N' Roses and Metallica. Those were the only things they were playing. With Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and 90s one-hit wonders that you've forgotten. And I kind of thought, man, if Billy is standing around somewhere, he's got to be seething at how they're playing this crap like it's what his fans want to hear. And he's going to come out and the crowd was
singing along.
Ironically singing along.
Were they?
Yes, Steven, you I don't know you that well, but it was totally ironic. Everybody I saw, it was a smirk. It was like, yeah, I'm really singing along to Mother, Mother, or Lightning Crashes, or...
I don't know about you, but I had a moment with Sister Hazel.
It was hilarious. It was actually really hilarious. I mean, I know you and your wife were cracking up at my Ed Kowalczyk routine. But I just imagine Billy's backstage, maybe hearing the crowd singing, not really seeing what was really transpiring in the crowd, or just hearing this music and going, I'll show him! I'll show him!
We're gonna play Oceania straight through.
Yeah, but no, nothing like that at all. It's the total opposite, actually.
I really do like Semisonic. I have that album. Filing divorce papers right now, hon.
They had another single that wasn't too bad. I can't remember anymore what it was, but it wasn't terrible.
Well, this is the thing. He co-wrote Someone Like You, the Adele song, which I think is a great song, so it always bugs me, because I hate Closing Time. So it bugs me that he wrote what I consider to be a great song, or co-wrote.
I still cannot believe... but they weren't British or anything, right?
I'm just gonna choose to believe that Adele wrote 95% of it, and she graciously added him as a co-writer.
Closing Time, you mean?
He was her James Iha.
Adele wrote Closing Time. She's like 11 years old.
He was her James Iha, like he adds like a couple Evo parts and...
And then 20 years later, Dan Wilson will be at a show playing Someone Like You. And there will be some Adele fan blog that's really mad at him.
We'll talk a little bit more about United States. So this is, I mean, I know at least there is one person listening out there right now who's probably seething that the band played United States without Jimmy Chamberlain and with
only one
new drummer Mike Byrne.
Chris, they played it in the 2010 tour.
Did they?
Yeah, I heard them play it a couple times. I think they played it at 2 of the 3 shows I saw in 2010.
And they did it at the festival, too, that they played in New York.
Yeah, so Mike has definitely played United States before.
We can just edit this part out, Chris. United States is awesome. I like Zeitgeist. Everyone knows this. Well, anyone who listens to the podcast religiously, which is none of you. It was cool. It was like the 20th anniversary version, which is a lot different than the album version if you've listened to it. But
I also think that kid can drum. Oddly enough.
Wow, you're gonna get your ass ripped in the comments, buddy.
We're gonna have some flaming now.
He's not. And
they liked anything you've said up to this point right now.
I thought actually, my honest to God sort of reaction to all of the new faces was that I actually felt like, and this again, maybe I'm going to get even more flamed, but honestly, that was the best live version of Porcelina I think I've ever heard. And I love
it. We got to have Steven back on.
I feel like we were hearing. It's almost. There was a part of me that thought like maybe this was too late, but I actually felt like I was hearing some of the best takes on some of the. Because I feel like I've heard a lot of live versions of the songs just a ton of times, and those really felt like that group of people up there really finally were nailing it. All the pieces were finally in place, and that kids know Jimmy Chamberlain, but frankly, they all together were hanging together. I felt tighter than a lot of the other performances of those songs that I'd ever heard.
Here I'll join you in being flamed. Like, he's no Jimmy Chamberlain, but I think their styles are actually quite different. I see all sorts of people saying, "Oh, Mike's just trying to be Jimmy," and I'm like, Jimmy is probably his number one drumming hero. But that said, like, Mike does not come from a jazz background, and I just think his style is like,
I would totally agree.
Is more like the stuff we know he listens to, which is math rock and stuff like that. So.
Well, I wonder how much of the fact that they do seem so tight and they like have these great takes of these songs is because they are playing. Billy's really stuck with I won't say the same set list over and over, but he's definitely not branching out as much as he has in the past. Where we'll do one tour with Bullet with Butterfly Wings straight, and next time we're gonna do this jungle drumming version. It seems like he really is giving them a chance to really, learn these songs perfectly rather than trying to go off in a different direction. I don't know how much of that is, he wants to, bring the new band along and have them like feel really comfortable, and or whether he just doesn't feel comfortable being really experimental with them. But I don't think it hurts. I think it helps to, let them kind of become great at being Smashing Pumpkins and then maybe branch out and do something crazy.
we had my wife and I were having well, it wasn't an argument as much as a debate about she was, because I kept saying like, oh man, it's so weird to be at a Smashing Pumpkins show, here at South by Southwest, and she kept saying it's not a Smashing Pumpkins show. She corrected me at least 3 or 4 times over the night. We kept debating as to whether we could call what we were watching a Smashing Pumpkins show. And the funny thing is, I mean, that I feel like it's related to what we're talking about now, whether this configuration, how much ownership there can be, if any at all. And in a weird way, I don't know. I kind of feel like, I mean, we all know the history of the band and how much it was Billy Corgan, how much it was Jimmy Chamberlain, and sometimes oddly enough, I mean, I'm not so sold on the idea anymore that it has to be that specific configuration in order to be a Smashing Pumpkins, and whether
this is the second band topic we're allowing you to speak about. By the way. First, is it Smashing Pumpkins or the Smashing Pumpkins, and now, what is the Smashing Pumpkins anyway?
Does this count as hazing again? But I don't know. There was a part of me that felt like, in a weird way, it struck me as interesting that even just the possibility that all these kids, which is basically what Billy Corgan has surrounded himself with, that they oddly enough could be a better configuration of the Smashing Pumpkins than the Smashing Pumpkins proper. That was weird to me.
I've seen other people say things like that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it was just the fact that, Darcy was always strung out on something, James Iha, all the weird dynamics that they always had going on, that oddly enough, now when you just have like really talented musicians around Billy Corgan that are, I guess, just willing to kind of be involved in the band in a secondary way, that maybe that's how we get the best shows that we can get. I don't know.
That thing, what you said, I always thought it was true of James in particular, that he knowingly embraced his role as secondary. Now, Billy says all the time that wasn't true, right?
Right.
Like, how many times has Billy said, James Iha wanted to be the star, James Iha wanted to blah, 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 blah. That's not my take on James. I just think, like, because
even with his solo albums, it seems like he doesn't really want to be the star.
Look, here is the story of James to me, and I may have said this on the podcast before, I may have said it 5 times before, I'm sorry, but this is the story. Like, when they first got together, they were playing together and jamming in Billy's bedroom or whatever, and one day James got pissed and was like, fuck it, I'm out of here, right? And this is Billy who told this story, and Billy said, well, I figured that was the last time I was ever going to see that guy. And then he said a month later, James calls him and is like, let's do music. And Billy's like, okay. And that was the band, right? And I just think, my interpretation of that story is, James is sitting at home for a month going, God, that guy's an asshole, but he's got talent, Mm-hmm. And he willingly accepted that role, and that made the Pumpkins go for a long time. And I think James deserves all the credit in the world for that, because that's a really, really hard thing to do, So I'm agreeing with what you're saying, Stephen. I think now he's got a whole band of people like that. A whole band who saw the Smashing Pumpkins, saw Billy Corgan, was left by himself, and obviously, like, what their position was going to be was so clear, and they embraced it and wanted that role. You know what I mean? All 3 of them wanted that role.
Yeah, to help Billy sort of realize his vision, And they have been given, I think Billy has actually, because of their willingness to step into that role, he's actually given them a little more freedom, and I think that comes through somewhat on the, on Oceania. You can hear that sort of what I call the band sound. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast before. So I think you're really right with your observation there.
Is that part of the hazing too?
No, we accept you now.
Or is that when you turn it against me and then you bring me up just to bring me?
And our closing song for the week will be solo vocal performance of what's the Sister Hazel song called? My Steve.
Hard to say. Seeing you, something like that.
Sister.
Or no, Sister. Wait, yeah, Sister Hazel. That was whatever.
Doesn't anyone on this podcast have a computer? I'm joking. Anyway,
that would be cheating.
I think we've kind of talked about the South by Southwest show enough. I'm looking now at the upcoming tour information to see kind of where the band goes from here. It looks like they've got a festival show in Mexico in a few days, and then nothing until the end of April. One interesting thing, I guess, about the upcoming U.S. shows is they're bringing back the VIP idea from last year, where pay gobs of money and get a private Smashing Pumpkins concert set before the show, which is kind of interesting to me because this is, I think, one of the first times where one of Billy's, unique ideas of, get involved with the band. He's had these ideas a lot recently where he kind of wants to get some of the fans more involved, find a way to do it. He's tried to sell shows online. He's tried to sell copies of shows right after the show. He's tried
it's a
to
slippery slope. Before you know it, he'll be doing bar mitzvahs.
Yeah, he's tried to have people come in for the sound checks, and it seems like this is the first time where he's, at least it seems like he was happy with the way it turned out and is going forward and doing it again.
Because he's doing the same thing twice.
Yes, it's a first for Billy Corgan. He's repeating himself.
Except I thought this one was like a backstage special VIP tea drinking experience.
It's the Madame Zuzu's backstage
It's sponsored
experience.
by Madame Zuzu. Will there actually be tea drunk? I don't know.
I think it said vegan treats. I'm not sure about the tea part, but definitely vegan treats.
Penny
From
Roy.
Zuzu.
From Zuzu. Yes.
Shout out to Monty there.
So yeah, no, I think that's interesting. Really, if you think about it, going back to 2010, they've had some iteration of a exclusive experience. So in 2010 they had the pre-show on most of their U.S. dates. They had the pre-show sound check where you showed up, were the first 20 one of the first 20 people in line, you got in.
Right.
And then in 2011 there was what were they calling it? The Smashing Pumpkins Record Club.
Right, the record club meetups where
Yeah.
Terry Brown would come out
Record
and talk
club?
to you.
Yes. Oh yeah. Smashing Pumpkins Record Club.
That was awesome.
And then last year they had the VIP, and then now they're bringing back the VIP. So it seems like he's figured out a formula that works for him. Unfortunately, it's a formula that doesn't really work for me, seeing as it costs like $400.
I was
But
going to say, it's ironic the formula that works is one where the fans pay gobs of money and not either of the ones where the fans waited in line a long time. Although, I remember the sound check thing. I was at one of the shows and did get there early and went in for the sound check, and it was a neat experience, but, a day or two before my show was the one where he cut it short because of a fan shouting or being rude or something like that. So I guess, by having that barrier to entry of $400, he's pretty much guaranteed that's not going to happen. So I'm sure he did have a better experience out of this than he did with the, random radio people there.
Spoken like a true economist.
I feel like I want to make some sort of tea party joke, but I can't think of anything. That's all. I actually am curious what's going on with Tiergarten. Where are we, and what's happening with that when they're on tour? Are we still going to get songs along the way? Are they working on new material or just live or what?
yeah, because I'm a crazy Twitter stalker. I keep up with this stuff. So, Billy and Jeff, Jeff the guitarist, has seemingly been in Chicago most of 2013. And I think he and Billy have been writing and demoing songs. That's just my opinion. I don't necessarily have evidence to back this up. But I think they have started working on new material. That is my feeling. Now, who was it recently? I think it was Nicole.
It was Nicole, yeah, the one
She
that
said
said
on-
that Tiergarten is going to continue with our next album and will continue until we've released enough albums to
finish the
it.
44 songs.
Yeah.
That's the party line, apparently, is that whenever they hit 44 songs, that's the end of Tiergarten. So I guess they better count their songs out very carefully. So,
You don't want it to end in the middle of an album.
yeah, I know. So,
Can you imagine an album will be labeled like Side A, Tiergarten Volume 6, Side B, like whatever the hell he names the next thing.
so that's the party line. To me, Tiergarten died in spirit, if not in name, when they decided to stop releasing the song-by-song format. And I find it sort of disappointing because I was very interested in sort of the tarot progression philosophy of Tiergarten, the Tiergarten mystery, if you will. And I was really
There was
interested.
the whole whiteboard with all like the mother and
Yeah.
child and all that stuff.
I liked that, and I liked the songs, and I mean, will we ever hear those songs played again live? I mean, really? So it's that aspect is kind of disappointing to me. I mean, it seems like they're going to keep up the name of Tiergarten, but it doesn't really seem. I mean,
No, and
you know.
I agree with you. It seems like any connection Oceania had to Tiergarten was just that some of the songs were written around the same time. But the way Billy's going, where he's not, considering songs that he wrote a year ago or 2 years ago as relevant or new anymore, and he's kind of all starting from scratch each time, writing new material. There's not really any comparison, I think, or any connection with what they're doing now in Tiergarten, in my mind.
I think for me, musically, I thought there was. I mean, but they clearly feel like they're part of the same club. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I always felt like when I listen to Oceania, it's a spruced up version. They're cleaner, they're more produced, they're more polished, but they definitely felt like they were part of that bunch to me.
I agree with you.
For me, I don't know. I'm coming from way out. I'm probably so far left field that I'm not even in the game anymore. In the sense that I grew up. I grew up with them, and they were always a headphones, my personal Smashing Pumpkins band. And for me, in a weird way, I actually felt like even though it was alienating and kind of at times maybe even embarrassing, the way that Tiergarten was being released, kind of like, I'm just putting this song out here for maybe everyone and no one sort of weird format where it felt very kind of like, I don't know, it almost in a weird way seemed as desperate as those days when I start having flashbacks of so many of the weird iterations of Billy Corgan websites where he was like just trying to put it all out there. And but in a weird way, for me, it actually felt kind of like a return to the way that band always felt to me, which was more of like a studio band and a personal thing. And in a weird way, I know that kind of goes against my other point and I don't know how to reconcile those two, because in a weird way, I do feel like now they really feel like they have finally, and again, I don't know who the they is. That's another problem. But I feel like live, they sound great now. But I feel like it took, I don't know what to do with that, because in a weird way, I feel like the Smashing Pumpkins will always still be that, that headphone band to me, like just kind of at home by myself with all of, Billy Corgan's effects and overdubs in full force. So I'm in a weird way, I'm kind of sad to see that maybe that they're departing from that because they're doing the live thing now or moving on, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought about the band sort of ebbing and flowing between being focused on the live stuff and being focused on the studio stuff, because in my view of their history as a live band, I think of there being certain peaks, and like other people can disagree with what the peaks are, but when I think of the peaks, they tend to come like years apart. So there's like these periods of like 3 or 4 years where maybe the live show, it just isn't that great. And I actually think maybe we're coming out of one of those periods. Like I'd say 2010 to 2012 maybe wasn't as good as a lot of other periods. Let's just put it that way. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm obviously a Billy Corgan worshiper, and like, his crap is so much better than most people's like best stuff. But I think like 20th anniversary tour in 2008 and Spirits in the Sky in 2009 is like a peak to me. It's one of the peaks that he's done. And then I think since then they haven't been that great, maybe so much. But like this show I thought was great. I really did. It was one of my favorite shows that I've ever seen, which is probably a long list of my favorite shows I've ever seen. But there's definitely some shows that I've seen that are not on that list. So, maybe you're right. Maybe they're kind of getting out of the studio and feeling their live oats. And, to me, I sort of welcome that, but I understand that there might be people, there are certainly people, and you just claimed yourself to be one of them, that wouldn't welcome that so much. So.
Yeah, I don't even mean that I don't welcome it as much as, all of my relationship with the band was built around that album experience, which was for a very long time so different than the live experience. And they both had their charms, but I think for me, I mean, for me, it was all the way up until the 2000s where I kind of sort of started to take the live stuff more seriously, and look at it critically and kind of finally really like it. I just always felt like they were more, I had more of an experience, a richer experience on their albums. I thought that was where they really, found themselves, or Billy found himself.
I think I will welcome it a lot more if they do start debuting some of the new stuff that they're working on, even if it doesn't end up making it on the next album, or it's just one or two songs. I think it's really hard to go a year and a half, I guess, with absolutely no new music.
I think it could happen, Chris. I mean, I think obviously we've just come off of several tours in a row, it seems like, where they stuck to one set list. But if they're feeling their oats a little bit, I think that could maybe change. So
yeah, and I don't necessarily mean every day play a totally different set list. That's never been the Pumpkins. They're never going to do that. But yeah. I mean, hey, we've been we wrote this song back in December, January. We've been demoing it in the studio. Think it might be good enough to play out. Let's try playing it out a few times.
Yeah. Well, they did it with the Dream Machine, right, Susan?
Right.
Yes, they did. I was really hoping for Dream Machine. I mean, I don't even know that I like it that much. I mean, it was still, I think, kind of was germinating even in the version they were playing in December, but I just kind of wanted to hear it because I wanted to hear something new, but I'll live.
I think, was it in Nicole's thing where she said they thought about releasing some B-sides or, extra studio material from Oceania, and then they decided against it? Oh, yeah. The old Pumpkins never would have done that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Billy had talked about, I think we talked about this in the last podcast, releasing some kind of, alternate mix of Oceania for the Europe tour.
Right.
Haven't heard anything of that, so, I don't know.
Chris, you know me, I could talk for 2 hours about how Billy Corgan has stopped releasing stuff like he used to.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of, I'm getting a little bit frightened now that we have not heard anything about the Aeroplane Flies High reissue.
You're fitting right in with the O-boarders.
Really? Yeah,
yeah. There's
in a while, but
yeah, there's a ton of panic right now about the Aeroplane Flies High reissue and having not heard anything and isn't it going to come out, and people are claiming, and I don't know if this has actually been confirmed by anything we've heard, that EMI has been now bought by, somebody help me here, EMI was bought out by some other media conglomerate, and so people are saying now the reissues have been. I know.
I think they're going off of what Billy said back at Christmas when he said the EMI was bought and the whole idea of the reissues might be back up in the air because he had his contract, but when these things happen, the contracts, you never know what'll happen.
Yeah, so people are freaking out. So I mean, who knows? I don't know enough. I certainly don't know enough to speculate one way or the other. So
yeah, it's been very silent for a long time here.
I just hope they release it on vinyl.
I think that was the plan.
That was definitely the plan.
Baby, okay then. I didn't know that. I mean, because the Melancholy reissue didn't come out on vinyl, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm.
The bonus material didn't, but the album did.
Right. Well, no, I was actually thinking of the deluxe one that had all the extra material, all the new art, all the little weird things that you could kind of tinker with.
Decoupage.
Oh, nice. Yes. Thank you. That was only CD, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that's always been that way. With the reissues, the bonus material's always been CD only or digital. Buy it online. Which
I mean, I haven't listened to a CD in years. That is somehow.
Wow, you're really from Austin.
That is seriously though. Ironically, the CD when I hold those in my hands, I get way more nostalgic for a CD than I do a record. It's weird. But especially considering that the Airplane Flies High. I mean, remember I'm sure we all have it. The little guy with all the singles. Actually, I mean that was based off of those big holders for 45s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, he. I mean, the original plan when they were working on the reissues. I mean, last year he was talking about that Aeroplane reissued would come out with bonus material on CD and then all the original tracks on vinyl in some format. But we haven't heard a peep, so who knows? But that was the plan. Was that at least the main tracks, the original Aeroplane tracks, would be on vinyl for the first time.
Yeah, which was a big deal because they didn't do that last time around.
In general, I mean, I don't want to sidetrack, but I've always felt like Billy has dissed me when it comes to freaking vinyl. I always wanted Future Embrace on vinyl, and I always wanted Zwan on vinyl, and just wasn't going to happen.
He wants it to happen, I think. I think he really wants it to happen. I think it's been more of a record label issue. But, his intent and desire is to reissue, everything. Reissue Zwan, reissue, every freaking thing and put it on vinyl. Mm-hmm. But the question is, can he get partners to do that? The good thing about the Zwan is that the rights revert to him and Future Embrace after a statute of limitations. I think it's 2014.
Yeah, it's 2014. I remember when he announced it, it seemed like so far away. 2014, that'll never happen. Now it's next year.
Yeah, so, at that point, he can actually do what he wants with Zwan and, Future Embrace and hopefully put out Chicago songs, Billy, put them out. I want them. So, anyway.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
The time's not right, Susan. The fan community isn't prepared to embrace them.
You shouldn't have gone online after his one show and said you wanted electric rock music.
Yeah, those of you who liked the Dream Machine, it's your fault that it wasn't played live the other day.
Can I ask what was the highlight for you guys at the Red Bull show? Your favorite song? I feel like we didn't get to that.
It's really tough to top Lightning Crashes. That was a special moment.
That was hazing. That was hazing. It's not taking me seriously.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Susan?
Oh, man. JJB is not going to believe this, but I think it was probably United States. You have won me over with...
No, that just proves you're a real Smashing Pumpkins fan, because if you don't waver about what your favorite songs are and stuff, come on. Probably Oceania, the song for me. I'm a sucker for those big, long songs. I really am. I hate to admit it. I really do, because I hate mostly, it's not good when people are talking about, watery epics. I just can't stand that, mode of fan discourse.
It's an 8-minute song. It must be great.
It must be great, even if it's stellar.
Yeah, literally when Oceania was leading up, Billy was like, yeah, there are 2 8-minute long songs or something, and people are like, oh, those are going to be the best ones. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yes, I cannot stand that. But, at the end of the day, come on. Most of his long songs are good. Well, they're actually a surprising amount of crappy long songs. You just have to go through carefully and be like, wait, that song is 6 minutes long and it sucks.
Jason.
They're not even B-sides, though. It's stuff like Psychedelic and...
Why Am I So Tired?
Exactly. And Stellar. And, sorry, I'm trolling you, Hipsters United commenters.
Yeah.
We all love Stellar.
Wow, you don't like that song.
No, none of us like it.
Yeah, Jason and I both have been on the record on the podcast as not understanding the...
Steven, you're going to be the new hero of many commenters, but then they're going to hate you, too. That is if we even have any commenters on.
Finally, there's someone standing up for Stellar.
Oh, I'll stand up. I will. That's a solid song.
I can never even remember how it goes. How can it be a solid song?
Is that the one that's like... I can't even sing this tune. It's like...
It's unrememberable song.
Unrememberable?
Unrememberable.
Well, thanks for joining us this week. You can still leave comments at hipstersunited.com. Please do if you are still out there listening. Our closing song is one of the last times Billy performed in the United States in New South Wales, Australia on October 16th, 2010. Good night, everybody.
Really, United States with Mike Byrne was your closing song all along.
See, I had forgotten that Mike was around for 2010. The years
You've
just
gotta-
kind of
Tell
the
me,
years blend away when you get my age.